Our first speaker this morning is going to be Luis Mario Ribeiro from the University of Coimbra, and I'll let him introduce his talk.
Thank you. I've been told that I may speak in Spanish or in English. I don't know the majority of the audience what speaks. Should I rather speak in Spanish or not? Not. Okay. So, if I may start, I don't know. Yeah? Okay. So, good morning, everyone. My name is Luis Ribeiro. I come from Professor Viegas' team, which is also one of the co-authors of this work, along with the others you see there. I think the representative of the government of Catalonia this morning, or Barcelona this morning, made the perfect introduction for this lesson when he said that we should and must learn from past events or catastrophes. And this is exactly what this is about learning of what happened in Madeira last year. We are used to do this with safety issues, namely when accidents occur during firefighting. This time is just one specific episode in Funchal. Well, Madeira, as you may know, is a small island on the southwest of the Iberian Peninsula. It's part of the Portuguese territory, of course, and it's a very well-known touristic spot, known by its natural beauty. These are typically the images that show in the TVs and so on. But last year it suffered from serious incidents regarding forest fires, namely two large fires. One of them reached the island capital of Funchal during the 8th to 10th of August. It was a serious incident because it involved structures and forests. It was a wild and urban interface fire, and it destroyed 154 houses out of 251 damaged, killing 3 people, and with an estimated damage, not only this fire, but regarding all the fires of Madeira that year, of 157 million euros, which is a lot for our standards. So for those of you, more or less, Madeira, this is the capital, Funchal. This is the urban area, and this is the final fire perimeter, and you can see several runs of the fire inside the city perimeter. It was an extraordinary heat wave at that time. We had temperatures higher than 28 degrees all the time. So this means even during the night, the temperature was at least 28 degrees, and 92% of the time above 32 Celsius degrees. It's not very common to see this kind of temperatures so much time, at least in Portugal. Relative humidity very low, wind gusts up to 80 kilometers per hour, and all weather indexes were putting all the island into the extreme class, risk class, except for the two most northern points. During these days, all the wind came from north, so bringing the moisty wind from the ocean would lower the temperatures more or less in these 2 points. But all the island was suffering from these meteorological conditions. This is the fire scenario at the time of the fire that I will tell you about. This is the fire that reached Funchal. You see some circles with a number which represents the hot spots for those days taken from satellite. And this is another huge area. The area burned here is larger than this one, although this one didn't impact directly with human structures or villages. So you can see at the time of this fire, this one was also burning. So all the resources, this is a small island, all the resources were dislocated between these two big fires, and they were lacking some resources. The help from the mainland, Portugal, just reached the fire on the final stage, so they couldn't be of much help during the major part of the fire. So for the ignition of the fire, the start of the fire, the conditions were extreme. Very low relative humidity, temperatures up to 37 degrees, and the winds always coming from north. North is descending the mountain. And this is the part or the place where the fire started. just on the margin of the urban area, on the limit, so right in the middle of the interface. It was an eucalyptus and shrubs area, and you can see it's very near the sea, very near the capital. So the wind was blowing from north, which means down the slope, preventing the fire somehow to progress upwards in a fast way. So the fire was very intense during these first stages of the fire, but it spread laterally, east and west. This part was controlled without major difficulties, but for this side there were a lot of houses in danger, and especially a water treatment station. This water treatment station is a public infrastructure and has no defense mechanism, either fuel management or active defense systems. And it was responsible for supplying water to all this northern region of the Funchal city. So what that means is that if the water treatment station would collapse, firefighters would not have water to deal with the fire. So at this initial stage, everyone, or most of the resources were dislocated to save this area. You can see the vegetation that was inside almost the house, it's still there because it was saved by the firefighters. So this required a large number of firefighters, the displacement, and they did not fight the fire per se. So at these initial stages, there are some pictures and videos. All of this is taken either from us or from the social media, from the internet, from the TVs. The fires jumped to the other side of this large water line, which is typical in Madeira, large water lines in some kind of canyons that go inside the house. So the fire jumped to the other side. This is changing the perspective so that you can see a bit more of the urban perimeter. That was during the 8th of August until the end of the afternoon. In the night, from 8 to 9 of August, during the night, the fire started entering in these water lines to the city limits. So there was a hospital here. I remember again the windows blowing from the north, which means that all the smoke was being pushed to the city. There was a hospital here that was evacuated. All the 234 patients were dislocated from the hospital to different places, many of them to military facilities that are over here. And then on the next day, during August 9, these two water lines that I'm talking, or these water lines that I'm talking about, are called Ribeiras in Portuguese, and they have very steep slopes, and they are running down to the sea, bringing all the water from the mountains. What happened was that the fire started descending from the bottom of these canyon-like structures, descending towards the city limit, and at least in this case, after it descended, it went upwards on the lateral sides of the canyon. So the fire descended from the bottom and then went upwards. And with this, a lot of problems came. At this point, on the August 9 afternoon, 600 persons were reallocated, 300 of them to a football stadium, more or less here, 36 houses burned out of those 250 something, and another hospital had to be evacuated. Not because it would burn, but because the smoke already started to be a problem there. There's a hotel resort here, a 5-star hotel, that also had to be evacuated, but by the direct threat of the fire. At this point, here on the top of a cliff, 3 persons were killed by the fire. And here, right in the middle of the city, the historic city center, several houses burned. Let me tell you a bit about these 3 particular incidents that are very relevant to see the nature of this fire. Inside of this house, it's the city center almost, okay? You have a water line there, a canyon, but not that much vegetation. So you wouldn't expect to see this. Those houses that are next to each other That's where the people died, 3 people. You see the cliff here, it's almost like a rock wall, but it was full with vegetation. The fire came from beneath. This video was taken on the next day. This you see is smoke, it's not fog, it's still smoke. The fire came from down and then upwards to the houses. And it burned a lot of houses during this, in this ridge. This is the only access to those houses that burned and where people were killed, you see? No vehicles can go there. And, well, this photograph, it's not, I don't know if it's clear there, but almost 2 or 3 people side by side cannot pass at the same time. So imagine getting out someone in a stretcher, it would be quite difficult. And then those houses, they are kind of a poor construction, and they were full with vegetation and with artificial fuels, which took the fire right inside the houses. Also some gas deposits down there. Here you can see now the houses that burned in the city center. I don't have much to tell you about this. All of those houses collected burning embers from the fire front, and a lot of houses burned in a place far away, very far away from the vegetation. Okay? So the Chopana Hills Hotel, this is before, this is after. A large part of this hotel burned. It's a hotel with 17 hectares of vegetation, which has no specific plans for fires, no defense measures, no defense mechanism, no fuel management, nothing. They have a lot of water here, and they didn't know what to do with the water during the passage of the fire. This is seen from the top. If I put it into perspective, you can see where it is located, right on top of this very steep slope, and this is what happened. Right above, north of the hotel, there are some private houses which also had the same fate, because they didn't take measures, but right on top of that was the opposite, with an owner that took some defensive measures, either by managing his garden with not so burnable species, also with water. He had a tank and a small motor. All these hoses are from him, they are not from the firefighters, and he managed, even the wooden structures did not get affected by the fire. So you see, in exactly the same place, the outcome of having some defensive measures taken by the proprietary, it was himself. Some specific aspects, very near that place, there was a football stadium, and at the last minute people had to go there removing the publicity panels that were on that net, and this is the final perimeter of the fire. Okay, so the top was a regular forest fire going upslope but against the wind, and then the problem was when it entered the city. But after the fire, we have other issues that are coming now. During the spring, we have heavy rains in Madeira, many years, and we expect to have some problems related to that with the lack of cover in the fuel. So all this terrain can come down and can threaten houses. We can have erosion problems. Copernicus is an European risk assessment service. You can see almost the entire fire area is classified on very high or high landslide risk assessment. Madeira is composed of many of these situations. You see the amount of fuel that there is in those steepy slopes. So it's very easy for the fire that comes from the bottom of those ribeiras, those water lines, those canyons, and then it can go upwards very easily. A lot of fires. Then the artificial fuels that are accumulated near the houses is a problem, not only in Madeira Island, but I believe a bit in the mainland also, and here in Spain, from what I've seen in recent years. This is what you see. You see a lot of constructions. This guy had all this wood cut here, and some embers ended on the roof there. Luckily, they didn't land here because the amount of heat that would be released by this wood could threaten his house. Then the gas canisters, which are a constant problem. We always see tires deposits, gas canisters, those large tanks, I don't know the name, You see the houses where the 3 women died. There's a gas deposit there of several canisters. And the strength of the explosion of the gas canister can make this. I don't know if you can see, but it embraced the door from the outside of this house. Okay? As it exploded, it impacted this door and it embraced it. Some fuel management in the gardens can be made in order to adequate the species. You can see these species of garden fuels. They burn, but they burn not so intensely. You see large stems, just some burning parts, and they can help prevent the fire to passing through the houses. So in conclusion, I can tell you that we had a serious heat wave that was on maybe the basis of the very intense propagation of that fire. We had an unprecedented fire event in Madeira with some disastrous consequences, 3 deaths, hundreds of houses destroyed, reallocations, 2 hospitals evacuated, 157 million euros in damage. And we noticed something that is still common even in the mainland, the lack of fuel management, although it is regulated by law, the lack of self-defense mechanisms, either in private owners or in public buildings, for instance, like that water treatment station, the artificial fuels near the houses, and a bit of lack of awareness from the population in general. And with some photos I finished. Thank you very much for your attention. If you have any questions, please. Oh, I'm told we have time for one question. Yeah.
How quickly were the fire services dealing? I assume that they were overwhelmed with fire here,
Yeah.
you know, the hotels, the homes, the city center. How did that, excuse me. Thank you. Michelle Steinberg with the National Fire Protection Association, U.S. My assumption is that the fire service became overwhelmed with the number of fires happening in different places. Mm-hmm. Could you comment on that, please?
Yeah, we are in an island. It's not that far away from the mainland, but to put some help there takes a long time. So more or less they have dedicated to fire, to fighting the fire in this time. They had more or less 500 firefighters, not available all at the same time. And the initial attack was not that, it took not long. But when they reached there, it's a problem common to the mainland. There are a lot of houses endangered, houses and people, and the resources go to protecting houses and people. And the fire kind of starts spreading out of control. And then they had that problem with the water treatment station that needed a lot of resources. And when they noticed, the fire was uncontrollable. So most of the time they were trying to protect houses and people. Okay, so, and they were divided between the 2 large fires, of course. Okay.